All right, today we're diving deep into the microscopic world of material science. We're going to tell a story of some really brilliant chemistry and some even clever engineering. We're going to explore how scientists solved a problem that's decades old by building a literal superhighway for molecules.
Okay, so let's start with a bit of a riddle. What on earth could possibly connect the fuel in your car, the detergent that gets your clothes clean, and the future of high-tech materials? Well, the answer is a really remarkable class of materials that act like tiny ultra-selective gatekeepers on a molecular level. And that material is called a zeolite. Now, zeolites are kind of the unsung heroes in countless industrial processes. They're incredibly powerful, but for a long, long time, they've had one very small yet very significant problem.
So, what is a zeolite, really? Well, imagine a sponge. But instead of just random holes, it has this perfectly ordered crystalline structure with pores that are the size of individual molecules. This structure makes it a molecular sieve. It's super picky about what it lets in and out. And this incredible selectivity is what makes them such fantastic catalysts.
Now, this slide right here, it gets to the very heart of the dilemma. You see, conventional zeolites have amazing selectivity. That's the good part. But their pores are so tiny that molecules just move through them incredibly slowly. Think of it like a massive, bustling city with only narrow, winding alleyways. For a catalyst, this creates a massive traffic jam. Reactions slow down, the catalyst gets all clogged up with gunk, and it basically dies off way too soon. The dream for years was to keep that amazing selectivity but somehow build a molecular superhighway for fast access. So for decades, this traffic jam problem just plagued chemists. And then in 2009, a landmark paper dropped in the journal Nature, and it completely changed the game. I mean, this was a true revolution. And it all started with one very, very special molecule. Okay, so meet the hero of our story. This isn't just any old molecule, it's a cleverly designed surfactant with a kind of dual personality. You see those red spheres? Those are positively charged ammonium groups. Let's call them the heads. They act as a template, guiding silica to form that perfect zeolite structure. But then you have that long, oily hydrocarbon tail. Its job is to act like a shield, physically stopping the crystal from growing any thicker. And this just shows the result perfectly. I mean, look at this. On the left, you've got a typical old-school MFI zeolite. It's a chunky, three-dimensional crystal. But on the right, using that special surfactant, scientists forced the zeolite to grow into these incredibly thin, two-dimensional nanosheets. So instead of a solid block, they created a stack of what are basically pages, each one just molecules thick. So just how thin are we talking about here? 2 nanometers. That is the thickness of a single crystal unit. It's ridiculously small. And the point is, by making the travel distance this incredibly short, molecules no longer have to navigate this long, twisting maze. They can access the catalytic sites almost instantly. And when they tested this for converting methanol to gasoline, these new catalysts lasted dramatically longer, simply because the stuff that usually clogs up the pores could get out easily. So the 2009 paper was this massive aha moment, the proof that this could be done. But was it just a one-off trick? Or could it be controlled? Could they apply it to other systems? Well, that's exactly what came next. A 2011 paper in Science showed how to turn this one amazing discovery into a versatile design toolkit. And this is where the real engineering genius kicks in. Scientists figured out that by just tweaking the design of that surfactant molecule, they could get incredible control. By adding more of those ammonium heads, they could make the nanosheets thicker or thinner. By changing the length of the tail, they could control the spacing, the size of the superhighways between the sheets. And they even showed it wasn't a one-trick pony. They could use the same idea to make other types of zeolites. They had created a genuine blueprint for designing these materials on demand. This was all fantastic, a whole new frontier in material science. But, to move these materials from a lab curiosity to something that can be used in an industrial factory, they needed to be robust and they needed to be easy to make. This next phase, detailed in some key papers, was all about perfecting that recipe. The first major hurdle was stability. You see, to activate the zeolite, you have to burn away that organic surfactant molecule that created the whole structure in the first place. But when you do that, poof, the empty space it was holding open disappears. The delicate nanosheet layers just collapse onto each other like a stack of wet paper, and you lose those valuable superhighways you worked so hard to create. So how do you solve that? Well, as a 2010 JAS paper explained, you add pillars. It's a really elegant solution. Before they burned off the surfactant, they slipped in another source of silica that would form permanent columns between the layers. Think of it like building the support pillars in a parking garage before you remove the temporary scaffolding. This kept the layers propped apart, making that mesoporous structure permanent.
So the next challenge was optimization. The first ways of making these used really expensive ingredients and took a very long time. We're talking weeks. For this technology to have any real-world impact, it had to get cheaper, faster, and much more efficient. So a 2011 Chemistry of Materials paper systematically studied the whole synthesis process. By tracking the crystallization over time, they made this key discovery. The most useful structure, this disordered, highly porous group of nanosheets, actually formed super early in the reaction, like within the first day. Letting it cook for too long just caused it to rearrange into a less useful state. This meant they could stop the reaction early, use cheaper starting materials, and still get a fantastic high-performance catalyst in just a few days instead of weeks. It was a game changer.
And were these new materials tough enough for industry? Absolutely. They subjected these MFI nanosheets to immense pressure, 750 megapascals, and they held their structure beautifully. In contrast, other materials like MCM41 just collapsed. This proved the new hierarchical zeolites weren't just some delicate lab curiosity. They had the guts for real-world applications.
So let's just take a step back and look at this incredible journey. We started with this really powerful material that was being held back by a fundamental limitation, and through some seriously clever molecular design, we've arrived at a whole new class of high-performance materials.
So to recap the whole thing, scientists first identified the core problem, those molecular traffic jams. The big breakthrough came from designing a molecule that could both build the zeolite and stop its growth. This was then expanded into a full design platform. And finally, through refinement and optimization, these materials were made stable and practical, creating a new generation of super efficient catalysts.
You know, this story is a perfect example of how fundamental science leads to powerful new technologies. By understanding and controlling matter at the nanoscale, we can solve huge real-world challenges. We have successfully built a superhighway for molecules. The question now is, from cleaner fuels and green chemistry to maybe even advanced medicine, where will this new road take us?